Welcome, welcome one and all. Winter Wizard here, and in this video I'm going to be unveiling the secrets of how the Drowned Plague wages war. Thank you for joining me today, whoever you are, and welcome to this little video of mine. And this is in actual fact the very first video on the channel where we're going to be delving into the list building and army writing side of the hobby. I'm thinking of doing a couple of kinds of videos for this aspect of the hobby. I'm going to be doing some list proposal videos, and I'm going to be doing some videos just like the one that we've seen today. And this is what I'm calling a complete army list and Tactica video. So perhaps you're wondering, well, what does that mean, Winter Wizard? Well, it's quite simple really. What I'm going to do is when I collect my armies and when I write lists and things, what I tend to do is I have what I call a go-to list. My sort of ideal, my favourite list that if you said to me, Winter Wizard, let's have a 2,000 point game, this is the list I would bring for that army. And yeah, so what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to bring that army out. I'm going to run down through all the different units. We're going to build the army up one unit at a time. I'm going to be talking about the stats and the war gears, any additional things we might be buying, like such as the nice deadly pathogens that you find in here. We're going to be talking about abilities, psychic powers, warlord traits, relics, functions and synergies in game with other units, stratagems that I like to use, points costs. I'm going to be running through absolutely everything. This is a full in-depth breakdown of the army. And like I said, I'm going to bring out one unit at a time, talk about each of them, and then at the very end of the video I'm going to set the whole army out on the table, show you what it looks like set up on the tabletop. So I'm really looking forward to this. I've been really excited to get into this kind of stuff for the hobby. Really is one of my favourite aspects of the hobby, is the list writing and the army development side of things. So with that being said, just a quick note, little disclaimer perhaps. I'm not a competitive tournament going 40k player at all. I have absolutely no interest in treating 40k like a sport, or not into the sort of hyper optimizing of units and the meta chasing and all that stuff. That's not me in the slightest. That being said, though, that does not mean that I certainly don't like to create a nice strong list. Absolutely. One of my things that I really enjoy is trying to create the sort of strongest, the strongest, meanest army that I can, using units that I love, but also trying to tell a story with the army. So, if you're a fan of the channel, you'll know that all the armies I collect, I really love naming the characters, writing lore and backstories for all the factions, and one of my favourite ways to represent that story, represent the lore and the character personalities, is on the tabletop itself. And through the traits, the army traits, the characters, the sort of warlord traits and all the little synergies and all that sort of stuff, taking all that into account, that's one of my favourite ways to represent my faction. And so that's what I'm doing. Try and create a tasty, strong list that's going to do really well, stand up for itself against even the nastiest of opponents, and whilst also being a great representation of the narrative and the theme, and incorporates models that I love. So that's going to be my approach. So we're going to get started very shortly. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Winter Wizard's Frozen Fortress, and I've got a nice cup of tea over there, Terran Gold, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host, Norwegian Troll Dimmu. So this is going to be nice. We're really thrilled to be delving into this kind of content here on the channel, and I was determined for it to begin with the Drowned Plague. They are the first army after all. So here we go. We're going to dive right into this because we've got a lot to cover, and there we go. Hope you enjoy. Okay then, here we go. So first things first, and let's talk about the Drowned Plague. So what kind of army are we trying to create here? What kind of theme are we trying to represent? Well, so the Drowned Plague, I've always went for a sort of slightly nautical, a sort of deep sea kind of colour scheme with the army, blues and greens, and I wanted to create I really loved the idea of a Death Guard army that was like what I call a rotten tide, so the tide is coming in to drown and take and claim everything in its path, and that's the play style that I try and represent. I try and create a feeling of an unstoppable tide So a nice horde element to sort of overwhelm and take over the enemy, you know, as it comes in, spreading across the battlefield. And so plenty of units there for a start. But I also wanted to create an unstoppable tidal wall type thing as well. I wanted to create the feeling that for the enemy, when they're trying to fight back against this threat, I want them to feel trapped, and I want them to feel sluggish and slow and stuck. So they're going to come up against threats that if they get locked in with, then they're going to be there for ages then. And if they're trying to battle against this threat, well, the Death Guard being disgusting, being resilient, we're going to outlast them, we're going to outdo them. So playing heavy into the resilience, and I just want to create the feeling of being able to sort of consume and overwhelm the enemy. And I want the enemy, if they get stuck into this, I want them to feel like they're stuck in the mud. I want them to feel heavy and they can't get out of this. You know, they're sort of trapped amongst all these bodies. They can't break through this disgusting resilience, and it's a slow, drowning sensation that eventually overcomes them. And that's kind of the idea. That's kind of the theme of the Drowned Plague, and that's kind of the playstyle that we want to represent here. And so let's take a look. And of course, factions Death Guard. So a couple of things to note about playing Death Guard. We've got there's a few restrictions here. We've got for building your army, the Voted Virion, that's the elite characters. We can get 3 of those into a detachment slot, no problem at all, as long as they're different. And there's a bit of a restriction here when you take in Pox Walkers and Cultists. If you say you had 2 Pox Walker units, well, you then have to match that with 2 Bubonic Astartes units. You can't have more what they call diseased minion units, that's Pox Walkers and Cultists. You can't have more of those than Bubonic Astartes, which is no problem. So that's no problem at all. Do go heavy on the Pox Walkers. So we've got plenty of Bubonic Astartes to match them. And of course we've got Disgustingly Resilient, so Death Guard -1 to all damage coming in. Very nice indeed. It does actually build up quite nicely over the course of the game, the amount of damage that you've managed to ignore. So yeah, it's good. And the Contagions Nurgle, this is awesome stuff as well. So contagion range goes up as the game goes by. About around 1, it's 1 inch range, about around 2-3 inches, then 6 and 9, so on and so on. And all enemy units within that range get -1 to their toughness, which is awesome rule. So Disgustingly Resilient for extra resilience. This for dropping down the enemy's toughness. I do try and make use of these as best as I can. I've got a few tricks for getting more bang for your buck out of those, which I'll be covering. And yeah, a few extra things and bobs. Malicious Follies, you know, they get shot, they get Bolt of Discipline, and Remorseless for ignoring morale modifiers. Plague Weapons, rerolling wound rolls of 1. Try and go heavy on the Plague Weapons as well. Just really like the fact that they're unique to the Death Guard, and that reroll 1 ability is really handy indeed. And Inexorable Advance as well. And that really plays into the sort of the theme of this endless, you know, trudging, you know, ongoing, unstoppable tide, you know. There's a few things to help them out with movement here, and as long as they just make a normal move, then they always count as remaining stationary, so that's really great for bolters, getting the 2 shots with them. And vehicles, no modifier for the hit rolls, firing into close combat. It's really nice. Some nice little starting buffs there for the Death Guard. Loads of colour, loads of theme. You know, disgusting, resilient. The closer you get to them, the more sick you get. Yeah, brilliant stuff. So we'll take a look at the structure of the army next. So army structure wise, well, we're at Strike Force level, so it's 12 command points to start with, loads to play with. Yeah, Dimmu can keep an eye on those for us. And we do actually manage to get the entire army into a battalion detachment. So that's really handy. That's going to cost us 3 command points right there, but we will get those back in a minute with the Warlord being in the detachment. That's one of the benefits of taking the patrol, the battalion, or the brigade. You get those refunded if your Warlord's in there. So I think it's always a great start to pick one of those. And minimum requirements for a battalion: 2 HQs, 3 troops. So we've got all that covered, and that opens up loads of room for other things as well. So a great start, I think. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start running through all the different units. We'll just work through each of them methodically, cover all the different aspects of the units, and we'll begin with the HQ choices. So the first HQ slot to fill, and it's going to be with, I'm going to be taking a Death Guard Demon Prince, and he is going to be the Warlord, so you probably know who he is if you've been following the channel. There he is. Gargle Rot Deep, Swallower of Filth, Bringer of the Rotten Tide, and Drowned Demon Prince of Nurgle. There he is. So the main man himself, the head of the Drowned Plague, the architect of the plague. There he is. So first off, I'll just quickly address the dreadnought in the room, and that is the fact that this is far too large to be a regular Demon Prince, and yes, I admit he is. My only sort of reasoning for that is that, well, I was young, I was naive, and well, never really liked the Death Guard Demon Prince models, you see. Wasn't really a fan of that. And the Rotigus sculpt for the Great Unclean one is perhaps my favourite model that Games Workshop have ever done. So I really wanted to use it in the army, really wanted to get it in there somehow. I thought, well, I'll use him as a Demon Prince. And I've created a story, obviously, as to why he's so damn big. A bit of narrative, bit of fluff behind that, bit of reasoning, but then in game, what I tend to do is I don't kit him out with particularly with any aura buffs. You see, he's got Lord of the Death Guard here, reroll hit roll of 1, but all his traits and things, what I do, I try to keep him more self-contained, you know, try and be a bit sort of more polite and respectable. But every person that I've played a game against, they've never had a problem with him, never had a problem with him at all. And I do play the base the exact size that it is, so he's not actually that easy to move around, and he's not easy to hide either. So as you can probably tell, so it seems to balance itself out nicely. But there we go. Nobody seems to have a problem with him. People seem to enjoy seeing him, and but also dread him at the same time. But there we go. So let's have a look at his data sheet. So Death Guard Demon Prince, you know, great stat line, weapon ballistic skill 2 up. He's got a 3 up save, 8 wounds, toughness 6, strength 7, 6 loads of attacks, 6 attacks. Yeah, he's really nice. You've got a few different weapon options here. He's got the Malefic Talons, represented by the slushy tentacles there, and his Crab Claw, the Claw of Gargarot, is represented as a, I take it as a Hellforged sword. So he's going up to strength 8, he's got AP -3 and 3 damage. That is a giant tin opener right there. And yeah, so he's an absolute monster in combat. You know, he'll tear through pretty much anything, especially when, you know, he goes up to strength 8. Getting him into combat, that's where all the damage is coming from. You get him into combat against a toughness 8 vehicle, well, Contagions and Nurgle, it's now gone down to a toughness 7. So he's going to be wounding toughness 8 on 3s. There we go. I like the Demonic Axe, but I thought, you know, the AP -2, going up to strength 9, when I don't think that's really going to make any difference. I can't see the axe being better than the sword, because he goes up to strength 9, well, you're still wounding toughness 8 vehicles on say a 3, which he's doing with the sword, because their toughness is going down. So for, you know, for complete combat focus, I think the sword is better personally, so he's gone for the sword. He's not having wings, of course, he's far too large for that. And what else has he got here? So he's got the Lord of the Death Guard, reroll hit rolls of 1, demonic invuln save as well. So he's tough as you like. He's currently packing a 3 up save, 5 up invuln, -1 to all damage coming through, toughness 6 and 8 wounds. So he's a beast. And there was an FAQ as well, actually. So they've taken away the key words Lord of the Death Guard for the Demon Princes. Now I don't know if that means that their aura buff has been taken away, but they corrected that so you could get, like, say, a non-Demon Prince and a Demon Prince, you know. So a Demon Prince and a regular Chaos Lord in the same detachment. So it was a bit of a conundrum, that was before. So really glad that that's been changed. Well, there we go. So that's what he's got. He knows the psychic power. So let's have a little look at those. So psychic power wise, typically with Gargarot, I like to take Miasma of Pestilence, -1 to hit. You know, it's great. Yeah, just really useful buff. Just, yeah, and warp charge value of 6, so pretty easy to go off. So I typically would tend to take that on him. However, I also quite enjoy Gift of Plagues. Now this is quite handy because you can choose a friendly unit within 18 inches, and that unit gets an extra 6 inches to its contagion range. So you stick that on something on turn 1, you've gone from a 1-inch range up to a 7. I've got some nice tricks where I can make good use of that, but we'll talk about that later. But typically I would tend to take one of those two, I think. But this is Gargle Rot Deep. This is the Swallower of Filth we're talking about here. So he's the Warlord. He needs a Warlord trait. So Warlord in a battalion detachment. So I've currently got my 3 command points back there, and Warlord traits. So we're going to give him one of those. Just mark by the little blue token there, and his Warlord trait is Revoltingly Resilient. So I wanted to give him a trait that was going to make him just really tough, really gross, really hard to shift. And I always took that one before. It used to be a 4-up, feel no pain. Now it's the 5-up, feel no pain. Yeah, just love it. Just think it's more universally more effective than perhaps some of the other ones. There's some really great buffs in here for reducing damage coming through, or ignoring damage and things like that. But I like the simplicity of that. I like how reminiscent of the old Disgustingly Resilient role it is, so I like keeping that alive through Gargle Rot. There he is, Revoltingly Resilient. And we also give him a relic. Again, just trying to make him just as gross and as tough and as hard to get rid of as possible. He's supposed to be this just, you know, he's supposed to be the size of a Great Unclean One. So I want to give him traits that are going to represent that and make him just absolutely a real nightmare to get rid of, you know. So ignoring damage with his Warlord trait, Disgustingly Resilient for -1 to all damage coming through is really good. And then we're going to give him the Suppurating Plate, and that's going to give him a 2-up save. So he's 3-up save, now a 2-up save, really good. And I like this rule a lot as well. If he gets hit in combat, when the enemy's finished his attacks, if he lost any wounds from that enemy, he can roll a 2-up and that enemy suffers a mortal wound. So I love the idea that as the enemy are cutting into him, he's supposed to be filled with all this horrible goo and rotten waters and all this stuff that he's swallowed and been drowned in. That's why he's so large. So I love the idea that as the enemy are cutting into him, you know, all this stuff is all this liquid and horrible stuff is pouring out through the holes in him as they're slicing him up, and showering them with some rotten goodness. So mortal wounds there. So just the perfect representation really of what he's like. He's supposed to be really tough, and he's full of all this gunk. So as you're cutting him up, he's hurting the enemy. So yeah, there's a relic there. The Suppurating Plate. So that's Gargle Rot's extra goodies. And really, in game, he's just there to be. He's just sort of there to be a sort of centerpiece of the army. You know, a real showcase figure, a real representation of what the army's supposed to be like. And he's there to really be. He sort of hides behind the line a bit, waits for the right moment, and then he dives out. You see, and he just becomes an absolute nightmare. Like this giant missile type thing that they throw at the enemy, because his Warlord, his buffs and Warlord traits, they're all self-contained. It's all about making him as tough as possible. So he wants to get stuck in. He wants to just tear through things with that lovely crab claw of his, and that's what he does. So that's really his function in game: to be the Warlord, to be the boss, and to just get stuck in there and tear down as much of the enemy as possible, and be a real nightmare to shift. So that's Gargle Rot. That's first HQ slot filled. Death Guard Demon Prince, Hellforged Sword, Malefic Talons. He clocks in at 150 points and a bargain to boot. So there we go, Gargle Rot. So we'll bring out the next HQ choice now. So HQ slot number 2. Perhaps you already know who it is. It is Typhus here, or as he's known in the Drowned Plague, Lord Commander Titus, Binder of the Demon Poseidon. There he is. So yeah, in game used as a Typhus model. So I'll put him down. Move Gargle Rot over here. Well, put him on the other side because he does seem to make Dimmu a little bit nervous. But yeah, so Typhus here. So his stat line, he's an absolute beast, you know. Weapon ballistic skill 2-up. Toughness 5, 6 wounds, 6 attacks, and disease Terminator armor, 2 up save, 4 up invuln save. So again, really tough, really resilient, and an absolute beast in combat as well. He's no slouch at all. Weapon wise, he's equipped with a master crafted fish fork here, and so we've got 2 ways of hitting with that: cleave or scythe, so you can do a big choppy or a swishy. So you've got, you know, heavy stuff or hordes wise. And yeah, he's absolutely brilliant. He's got loads of special rules here as well. So he's got some mortal wound, you know, it's command phase, he can throw out a couple of mortal wounds here and there. And he's the master of the dead who walk again. So Pox Walkers, they are going to feature in this list pretty heavily. And Typhus hangs around with them, they get +1 to their strength, which is awesome. So really great buff there for Pox Walkers. He's Lord of the Death Guard, rerolling hit rolls of 1. He actually gets an extra 3 inches to his contagion range, which is awesome. He's got 2 psychic powers. So psychic power wise, let's have a look at those. Yes, the psychic powers for Titus, we like to take personally. Putrescent Vitality, always a great one. You know, +1 to a strength and toughness of a friendly unit. This goes off on a 7, so not quite as easy as the others, but not too bad. Just a really great buff there, especially for things like Pox Walkers. Really good. And I also quite like taking Curse of the Leper with him. Witchfire, value of 6, warp charge value of 6. Choose an enemy unit within 18 inches and roll 7 dice. And any dice that exceeds their toughness characteristic causes a mortal wound. Now, the closer he gets to the enemy, the better that's going to be. Because if you can get, say, Space Marines, so you've got a squad of 5 Space Marines, they're all at toughness 4. If you can clock them with the contagion range and get them down to toughness 3, get this power off. Now you need 7 dice, needing 4 ups to cause mortal wounds on Space Marines. Really good. Or, you know, if you've got, say, a blob of 10 guardsmen or something like that, and they're toughness 3, if you can knock them down to their toughness 2, well, you need 7 dice needing 3s to cause mortal wounds. It's really good. So it's awesome little power there for a nice little bit of mortal wound bomb. But typically I would take with those 2, Putrescent Vitality, Curse of the Leper. I might kit him out with Miasma of Pestilence and give Gargorot the Gift of Plagues, but quite enjoying Curse of the Leper as well. But Lord Commander Titus here, I don't give him any Warlord traits, I don't give him any relics. He's pretty much kitted up enough as it is with those kind of thing, you know. The Master of the Dead who walk again and the Host of the Destroyer Hive, they're pretty much relics and Warlord traits in themselves. So yeah, second in command of the Round Plague, Lord Commander Titus. And his sort of functioning game, he's there to just be sort of a supporting character, you know, buffing the Pox Walkers, giving reroll hit rolls to core units as well, and just to be a psychic. He's the real psychic. He's the psychic presence on the board, you know, for me, dishing out them powers, buffing the units, and you know, he's absolutely not afraid to get stuck in and get his hands dirty either. You know, he's no slouch in combat whatsoever. So, Lord Commander Titus, that's the second slot of HQs filled, and he clocks in at 165 points again, so not that expensive at all for what he does. Well, there we go, those are the 2 HQ choices, first and second in command, Gargorot and Titus, the dynamic duo that they are. And so that's all the HQ choices we have in the army actually. So next we'll take a look at some troops. So we'll move on to troops now, and for a battalion we need to fill 3 slots of troops minimum. And I did look at Plague Marines, definitely love these guys, but I have in fact actually gone for all 3 slots filled with Pox Walkers. So I'll bring these on. There's absolutely loads of them. Squad of 17 Pox Walkers here, 17 of them. And that is copy and pasted again, another 17, and again. So let me get all these out for you. Here they are, 3 squads of 17 beautiful, dirty, slushy, amazing Pox Walkers. There they are. But yes, 3 lovely squads of 17 Pox Walkers there, and it's no secret whatsoever that I absolutely adore Pox Walkers. They're my favourite unit in the game. They really are. They're so much fun. I absolutely love using them. And now you can see this real nice sort of tidal horde element of the army, of the Drowned Plague come together. And this is a real focus point of the Drowned Plague. You know, it's the swathing horde of Pox Walkers. And their stat line, it's nothing crazy, except for the fact that toughness 4, which is that, you know, they're as tough as a Space Marine now, and 2 attacks each is pretty nice. You know, and they're hitting on 4s all the times now, so half of the hits are going through. And, you know, we've got some tricks to sort of buff that up a little bit as well. And their abilities, Curse of the Walking Pox, so much fun. They kill a model, it becomes a Pox Walker, as long as it's not a vehicle or a monster, you know. It's just so cool. So they love getting stuck into other hordes, you know, as they can bring those down. You'll often find that these are a bit tougher than them, and they bring them down and start bringing themselves back to life. It's so cool, so fun. They can't do actions as they're a mindless horde. However, there is a spread the sickness, one of the secondary objectives, which is one of my favourites actually. If I'm playing the match play stuff, yes, they're really good with that one, because you can sort of trigger the mortal wound thing on them. It doesn't matter too much. Yeah, so they're good for that. No morale tests required. Again, amazing. You know, you could wipe out most of the unit, have a couple of models left. Morale still not an issue. And 6 up, feel no pain. So you can fire, doesn't matter what you fire at them, they've still got a chance of ignoring it. So again, that's awesome. So much fun, you know, and we've got a couple of ways that we can buff these as well. So obviously we've got Titus here. He can give him +1 to the strength and get them up to strength 4. So if they're at strength 4, you get them into combat with a Space Marine, you know, who goes down to toughness 3 for the contagion range. They're suddenly wounding Space Marines on 3s. It's really, really good. But this will be a good time to talk about the Plague Company that I've chosen. So when you choose when you create your Death Guard army, your detachments, they can be trauma to a certain Plague Company. And I was originally thinking about mixing these up, because I quite like this Warlord trait called the Droning from the Ferrymen, which sort of halves enemy movement. It's really, really cool. But I did end up sticking it all in one detachment, and I've gone for the Harbingers. Yeah, simply because of this one stratagem here, the Wrathful Dead. Use the stratagem in the fight phase when the Harbingers Pox Walkers unit is selected to fight. Till the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, re-roll the hit roll. So it's really good. So hitting on 4s for a CP, you can re-roll all of that. That's awesome. Makes them really, 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 really reliable. But then you take that, combine it with Mutant Strain. So pay 1 CP on your Pox Walkers, and when they fight, unmodified hit rolls of 6 inflicts a mortal wound on the target. In addition to any normal damage. But an unmodified hit roll of a 1 inflicts a mortal wound on the Pox Walkers unit. But if you combine that with this stratagem to reroll hit rolls, what I end up doing is you've got a big fistful of dice, because they've got 2 attacks each. Throw them down. Pick out the 6s, they're going to be mortal wounds. What I end up doing is just scooping up all the dice again. Hit or missed. Go fishing for them 6s, you know. These things, you know, was it 15 of them? Let's say there's 15 of them attacking something like a knight. You know, 15 dice. No, 15 Pox Walkers, 2 attacks each, 30 dice. Fishing for 6s, re-rollable. Fishing for 6s. You can do loads of mortal wounds on the toughest of targets. It's absolutely nasty. I think it might be a little bit broken, to be honest with you. But yeah, those 2 stratagems combined together, 2 CP to turn them into an absolute killing machine. They're wicked. And we've also got the stratagem, the Dead Walk again. This is really cool. You can only do it once per unit, per game, but 7 dice, 3 ups, get a Pox Walker back on the board, as long as it doesn't go above the starting unit. So when they've taken like half damage, you know, you've taken quite a few casualties, bosh, you can put them back on the board. When you do that as well, there's no reason why you can't sort of, you know, you've got the unit there, you can't then start maneuvering them out towards where you want to go, get some free extra range. It's gross, it's awesome. Yeah. I absolutely love Pox Walkers. I always have so much fun with them in game. I couldn't have a Death Guard list without them, and they really are the sort of one of the defining features of the Drowned Plague, that swath of Pox Walkers. And 52 of them, I think, is is pretty respectable. Very nice indeed. But that's their sort of synergies with stratagems and things in game. They're really there to be that rotten tide, you know, to go out, flood objectives, you know, choke things up and block things up and keep things tied up and bogged down and drowning, you know, swarm objectives, get buffed by Titus. Yeah, just an all-round awesome asset, awesome nuisance. And Pox Walkers are, they're in actual fact only 5 points each. Just absolute bargain, absolute bargain. One of these squads, 75 points, 3 lots of 75, you know, all the troop slots filled, and just an amazing utility, an amazing asset to the army. Yeah, so good. Well, so that's the troops choices, and that's all the troops choices we have. So next we'll take a little look at some elite options. The Pox Walkers, one final thing is that when you take them, what I mentioned earlier, take Pox Walkers, they are a disease minion unit. So now I've got 3 of those in the list. Now I need 3 Bubonic Astartes core infantry units to match them. Okay, and we've done that. And like I said, that's all the troops choices that I've gone for. So I'm actually kitting out with Terminators. So Terminators, yeah, so we've got this lovely, lovely hoardy element of the army now. This great rotten tide. But we need some meat. We need like a tidal wall, an indestructible, unstoppable wall of stuff to overwhelm and smash through the enemy. To be unbreakable, and what better unit to do that than Blight Lord Terminators. So I have in fact gone for 2 squads. 2 squads of 5 Blight Lord Terminators. And both identical as well. We've got the Terminator champion. He takes the Bale sword, power sword with a plague weapon keyword, so re-rolling wound rolls of 1. And I've got 2 with axes and combi bolters. And I've got 1 with an axe and a blight launcher, and 1 with a flail of corruption for good measure. And that's repeated twice there. So suddenly we've got this absolute, these things are utterly ridiculous. They're weapon ballistic skill 3, of course, strength 4, toughness 5, they've got 3 wounds each now, loads of attacks, they've got 3 attacks each, the champion's got 4, you know, 2 up save, not only that, disease Terminator armor, they've got a 4 up invuln save. These things, and disgustingly resilient, -1 to all damage coming through. These things are foul, they're utterly filthy. They're so hard to get rid of, you know. There's not really anything in the game that's like particularly efficient at taking them out, you know. Maybe some real high strength damage 1 stuff, but still, it's yeah, they're absolutely brilliant. So like I said, we've got the champion with a Bale sword, you know, it's a power sword, plague weapon. We've got 3 axes in there, bubotic axe, so power axe, plague weapon, and we've got the flail of corruption, which is a very nice weapon. It's +1 to the strength, so we'll be swinging at strength 5, AP -2, 2 damage, so awesome against Space Marines. Not only that, he gets to make 2 hit rolls for each attack that he's got. So suddenly got this one guy in there, you know, if you're expecting to get hit in combat, you've got this one guy there who's swinging 6 attacks with this thing. It's awesome. And they've all got, 3 of them have got combi bolters, so a nice bit of DACA there. The Terminators, so it'll be 4 shots all the time, trudging up the board, you know, and the Blight launcher as well. Blight launchers are awesome. Assault 2, strength 6, AP -2, 2 damage. Plague weapon, really nice. Nice bit of support. They're just an awesome utility unit, just an awesome, all-round awesome unit there. Utterly disgusting, really hard to get rid of. Really, they're great in combat, you know, the high AP weapons that they've got, re-rolling wound rolls of 1, really does cut through loads of stuff, you know. DACA for a nice support, a bit of mid-weight firepower support in there as well. And if things really do get a bit tasty in combat, you can always call upon the flail as well. So you can deep strike these things with the Terminator teleport strike, but typically I don't. I always set them on the board, always trudge them up the board, and yeah, they always do really, really well. And they are And so if the Pox Walkers are the sort of hordal element of the tide, these are really the sort of meat of the tide. And this is where the enemy, if they try and charge them, they really do get stuck. You know, you can be locked into combat with these guys for ages trying to get rid of them. That's where I'm talking about the opponent feeling really stuck, really, you know, like they're drowning, like they're slow and they're sluggish and they can't get out. They're stuck in this mess. Yeah, they're awesome, really good. So psychic stratagem wise, I don't really tend to use a lot of stratagems on them because they're actually really self-sufficient. You know, they really they're that good. They really don't need that many buffs. But it's not like some units you typically would play a stratagem on them every time. These ones really don't need it that much. But if you want, you've got Vermid Whispers for +1 to hit rolls. Very nice indeed. And Tunnel Hatred is a good one, you know. Add 1 +1 to wound. It's very nice. There is a what else we got? We can turn all the bolters into plague weapons here with virulent rounds, overwhelming generosity to get some extra range on plague weapons if they do that, you know. And if we want to really kick it out with the high AP in combat, we've got Creeping Blight here. Wound rolls of a 6. Gets an armor penetration of -4. So if you really need to cut through something without an invuln, you know, and you want just that little extra surety that it's going to go down, nice one to pop. And if you're going up against some big hordes and things, and you really want to break them, and you want to get moving, you know, break their spirits to make them to sort of get subtract 4 from leaderships to really try and force that, you know, that failed leadership test. Suddenly they've got to roll a load of dice trying not to get ones. That can be really nice as well. But typically they don't need a lot of stuff, like I said. If you disagree, if you think the stratagems that you would always play on them, let me know down below. But typically they set up on the board, they trudge forwards, Tactica support, bit of mid-weight firepower as well, just being an utter nightmare. And the enemy, if they ignore them, they will be there till the end of the game, no questions. And if they try and fire at them, then it takes them quite a while to chip through them. They're really good. Absolutely love them. So all that comes to each unit with axes, sword, Flail of Corruption, Blight launcher. Comes out at, well, Terminators, they end up being a total of 210 points each. So again, it's pretty chunky, but not crazy expensive for what they do. Not crazy expensive at all. So yeah, awesome. Really nice. But the fun doesn't stop there, because we have another unit of Terminators as well. Death Shroud Terminators. So 3 of those. And again, these guys are brilliant. I've had these guys for quite a while. Never was that blown away by them in the past editions, but in the new codex they're absolutely brilliant. You know, 3 wounds, disgustingly resilient, 2 up save, 4 up invuln. And they've got so many attacks each. The champion's got 5 attacks, and the other 2 have got 4. You know, with the Man Reapers. So, and these things will cut through pretty much anything. So good. They've got a little bit of supporting fire there with Plague Spurt Gauntlet and just a little flamer. Nice enough. Well, yeah, you can give them. You can give an additional Plague Spurt Gauntlet. You can give them Chimes of Contagion. I don't, just because I didn't really have the points. I keep them sort of cheaper. And yeah, these guys have an awesome role which is called Bodyguard. So if they hang around within 3 inches of a character, say, you know, like Titus is with them, then he can't be targeted by enemy fire whilst he's within 3 inches of these. And it doesn't matter if it's a sniper rifle, it doesn't matter if it's one of your assassins, it doesn't matter. While they're alive, if he's within 3 inches, can't be targeted. So that's a real awesome rule, because I do have quite a few characters going on in this army. We'll see some more of them soon. So having them hanging around with the characters, you know, they're a really awesome counter to if somebody's got a Death Star, like a combat unit. These guys, they want to get stuck in, they want to cut down everything, you know. So yeah, love them to bits. Really awesome unit. Stratagem wise, same sort of principle as the Blight Lawns. Not a lot going on there, but a couple of little tricks if you need to. And yeah, and again, not that expensive. Death Shroud Terminators, they're 50 points a model. You know, I don't give them any of the upgrades. That, you know, they're awesome enough as it is. 3 of those, 150 points. not, you know, for the amount of resilience they've got, for the amount of protection that they can offer characters, for the amount of damage output that these guys can kick out. Again, 150 points well spent. And again, I don't deep strike them either. Just trudge them up the board, protecting the characters, getting ready to charge and counter any charges coming in. Yeah, they're awesome. Good thing about Terminators, they're all 4-inch move now. Sorry, they're all 5-inch move now. They used to be 4. So they're quicker than they used to be. Yeah, so it's nice. So again, and there we go. And that's the Pox Walkers with their bubonic Astartes, you know, equivalents there. So it's now a legal force, and that's really the real core element of the army there. That's the real meat of the army. That's really where the tide is. You've got the horde element and this sort of unstoppable wall, this tidal wall coming in. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think it's an awesome combo. I really do. The combination there. I'll talk a little bit more about Tactica at the end of the video as well. But yeah, so we'll have a look at some more elite choices now. We're going to see some of the Voted Virion units, some of the elite characters. So some of the elite characters, and this is where this whole army is really going to start coming alive, and this is where we're going to start spending quite a few command points as well. So the first one here, Scribus Drench, the Tallyman. Here he is. Tallyman. Really awesome. So standard sort of Space Marine Death Guard stat line here. Toughness 5, got 4 wounds each, you know, 3 up save, no invuln save, which is a bit of a shame, but he tends to keep out of trouble, you know, most of the time anyway. Funny, Scribus is usually the last man standing if there's going to be somebody, you know. He's usually there hiding at the back taking note on his on his scroll there, bless him. He's war gear wise, he's got a plasma pistol rather. You know, nice to have. It's come in handy every now and again. But you take these guys really for their buffs, you see. So he's got malicious calculation. And what this means is he can tally a friendly core unit. So he chooses a unit in the command phase and he tallies them. And for the rest of the turn, that unit gets +1 to their hit rolls, which is awesome, you know. Every turn, every command phase, I'm sticking that on one of the Terminator squads. They're shooting, you know, they've suddenly got ballistic skill 2+, weapon skill 2+, you know. Really good, really handy. Awesome buff to have, you know. And he's also got the 7-fold chant, which is an awesome ability, you know. At the start of the command phase, if he's on the battlefield, roll 2d6, and if you get a 7+, it used to be you have to roll exactly a 7, now it's a 7+. You gain a command point. That's awesome. You know, you can be regularly getting 2 command points refunded to you in your command phase. You know, one for just your command phase in general, and one for this. So this is why I haven't really been too fussed about the fact that I'm going to spend quite a lot of these command points, because he's in the force and you can usually get you quite a lot back. Yeah, he's awesome. So the fun doesn't stop there. So we're actually going to give him we're going to give old Scribus here a relic. So there's a command point spent for a relic already. And it's going to be the Toll Keeper. It's the Tallyman specific one. And while friendly Plague Company core units are within 6 inches of the bearer, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores an additional hit. So the Terminators here, they're pumping out loads of hits anyway with the bolters, you know, and suddenly 6s are popping extra hits. And Blight launchers as well. The amount of times I've got some extra hits going off with them. Just an awesome little ability to have here. Really does help. Really does, you know. Yeah, so, and that's kind of his function really. He's going to be hanging around with the Terminators, giving them +1 to their hits, giving them 6s, popping extra hits, refunding command points. That's his role. He's just going to keep out of trouble really, do a few pot shots with his plasma pistol, and have all these buffs going, yeah. And that's what he does. No real stratagems to use on him. There are there's a few stratagems here where characters can explode sort of shower enemies in mortal wounds. There's a good one here if he has a relic of decay. Yeah, if he's got a relic of decay here, roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 7 inches of the model, and on a 2 to a 5 it suffers a mortal wound, and on a 6 it suffers d3 mortal wounds. Yeah, really nice. And there's another one. Yeah, good one here. Stratagem in your command phase. Select a Death Guard character, not a Demon Prince, and select an enemy within engagement range. You know, he can take 1 mortal wound to cause 2 D3 mortal wounds on the enemy, you know, if you roll on a roll of a 2 up. 2 D3 mortal wounds. It's really good. So that's it really. If he finds himself getting stuck in, there's some mortal wound bombs here that he can explode with, which is awesome, but he's there to be a supporting character, and he does a fantastic job at it, you know. He tends to work really hard just doing his buffs, and yeah, he's awesome. And he clocks in at a very handsome 70 points. 70 points for an awesome buffing character. Yeah, bargain. So Scribus is awesome. Scribus is in. So we've got 2 more of these characters to work through, and the next one we're going to bring out is Sergiot Spew, the Good Doctor and Plague Surgeon. Yeah, these guys are absolutely amazing. You know, so good. Standard stat line there. He's got a Bale Sword, which is a plague weapon. Power sword with a plague weapon, and what I do actually do is I pay a few extra points and give him one of these deadly pathogens. So which one do I use? I take Virulent Fever. So it's 20 points, you know, it's not crazy cheap, but it's not too bad. Just wanted to give him a little extra punch. So if you don't know how these work, essentially you choose one of these, pay the command points to upgrade a plague weapon they're equipped with. The weapon gets +1 to its strength, and it gets an additional ability as well. So his sword is now going up to strength 6. Very nice and handy, you know. And not only that, I chose the one where unmodified wound rolls of a 6 inflicts a mortal wound on the target in addition. Just, I felt like it was a bit of a tough call which one to pick. I don't think any of them are sort of overly outstanding. I kind of felt like his particular, the scrapes he tends to get in with the most tends to be with characters, so I think, you know, the chance for doing some mortal wounds here and there to cut through some invuln saves and things is a nice addition. But I really wanted to take one of these on him. I wanted him to be a bit of a feature. I didn't want his sword to just be a bit of a poxy power sword. I wanted it to have a little extra something. I wanted to give him one of the relic, actually, the Plague Bringer, which is the blade, but I gave him a different one, so I wanted to kit his sword out some way. So with one of the deadly pathogens, Virulent Fever is the one I've gone for. So that's his deadly pathogen. We'll take a little look at his abilities now. So he's got this one here, so he can heal, you know, revitalizing malignancy. At the end of the movement phase, this model can heal 1 friendly bubonic Astartes infantry model within 3 inches. And that model regains D3 lost wounds, you know. So he's going to be hanging around with the Terminators, he's going to be healing them, and not only that, units within 3 inches of him, they get a 6-up feel no pain. So he's really here for the Terminators. For the Terminators, you see, he's really going to be the core heart of the army. He's the guy who's making this lot even tougher to get rid of, you know. These things are hard enough to shift on their own. Let's say you don't quite do it and one's left on a single wound, you could heal them back up to full strength again. And while he's hanging around with them, 6-up feel no pain. So you've got Terminators now with 2-up save, 4-up invuln, 3 wounds, toughness 5, -1 to all damage coming through, and now a 6-up feel no pain and healing wounds as well. Utterly disgusting. Yeah. Really wanted to play into the revoltingness, play into the sort of disgusting, resilient factor of the army, and Sergiot does that absolutely beautifully. So we've also given him a relic. So we've given him the Vigaris helm, and all that does is it gives him an extra 3 inches to that aura. So he can be, so his feel no pain aura goes up to 6 inches. So just a little bit more versatile, a little bit nicer with him. I think it definitely helps, that little extra 3 inches. You know, if charges are going off or heroic interventions and you find yourself a little out of place, just having that little extra help on that aura seems to really help. So there's another command point spent, one for a relic, and because he's such an important piece of this puzzle, you know, he's such an important aspect to keeping this blob alive and keeping that resilience as brutal as it can be. And give him a warlord trait as well to try and make him even tougher to get rid of. And the one we go for, there's a warlord trait there. So he's really kitted out, you know. Warlord trait, relic, deadly pathogen. And the warlord trait we go for is hulking physique. So want to try and give him something to make him harder to shift, you know, keep the guy who's keeping everybody else alive. And I think this is a really great one. So he gets an extra wound for a start, so 5 wounds, that feels nice. And also he's got transhuman physiology, so he can only be wounded on a 4-up. Unmodified wound rolls of a 1 to 3 for that attack fail, irrespective of any abilities the weapon or the model have. So yeah, I think that was the right one to go for. There's some good ones here really, but I quite like that one. That extra wound seems really helpful, especially when he can heal himself as well, you know. And yeah, really great. So that's Sergiot. He'll be hanging around with the Terminators, keeping the resilience as brutal and as disgusting as possible. And he's not afraid to get to, you know, he can defend himself quite happily as well. You know, he's got his sword, got a little extra bite to it. So yeah, that's Sergiot. So we'll have a look at one final elite choice now. And the final choice for elites is, in actual fact, it's this guy here. It is Miasman Ooze, the Foul Blightspawn. Yeah, and these guys again are absolutely awesome. It's just a really great fun unit to use, this one. Again, stat line pretty normal. Again, no invuln save, but never mind. He's got his Garden Hose of Doom, you see, the Plague Sprayer. 12-inch range, assault d6, strength 7, AP -3, 2 damage, plague weapon, automatically hits the target. It's brutal. It's a marine killer, you know. And as I'm sure a lot of people are doing, it's a very popular choice. We're going to pay the 10 points to make it Viscous Death. So suddenly now that Garden Hose of Doom has gone up to strength 8, which is utterly filthy, and you can re-roll the number of hit rolls when determining how many shots the weapon gets. So that d6 can be quite swingy. You see how many times you roll a 1 for a d6. Well, now you've got the ability to always be able to re-roll it if you don't like the result. Really nice. Viscous Death, yeah, popular choice, I'm sure, and a great option here. And I love the flamer, you know, this is the Drowned Plague. I love that he's like spraying the battlefield in you know, in this liquid ooze and liquid grossness. Fantastic. It's got the Unholy Death's Head Grenade as well. I don't think I've actually ever used that in a game. If I go up against a big Horde army, it will come in handy, I'm sure. But his ability is awesome. Putrefying Stink, so he acts like a Judiciar basically. At the start of the fight phase, you can select one enemy unit within 3 inches of the model. That unit is not eligible to fight this phase until after all eligible units have in your army have done so. Again, that's awesome. That's really good. He's a real great buff for these Terminators again. What the enemy their sort of answer for trying to deal with this problem often is sending a big sort of melee Death Star unit to hit them. Well, if Miasman's hanging around, you can shut that down, you know, and then the Death Shroud can do their work before this Death Star unit has even had a chance to hit. So he's really good. Again, just adding to the layer of resilience to these Terminators. And you know, I've got loads of command points to play with, so I thought I'd make him even funner. And I do in fact give him a Warlord trait actually. So there's another command point spent. And we give him the Warlord trait, Living Plague. So it's an aura range of 3 inches, which will mix in nicely with his Judiciar aura thing, you know, the Putrefying Stink. And what this does is enemy units within 3 inches of him can't be affected by aura abilities. So, except for psychic powers, but still, you know, no re-rolls, no wound rolls, re-rolls, and things like that. Things like litanies going off that can become auras, nothing like that. Again, it's just about shutting down any tricks that the enemy's got to try and sort of, you know, answer this problem that I'm giving him here. So he's just an awesome unit for getting real stuck into the fight. It's funny because he doesn't have a melee weapon at all, but he needs to sort of be getting stuck in there, spraying stuff with his hose, you know, shutting down auras, making things fight last, and just generally being a real pain in the ceramite, real nuisance unit. And he's very good at it. He's very good at it indeed. And then the Plague Sprayer, you know, it's now strength 8. rerolling the hit rolls. It's a great stratagem here. Overwhelming generosity. You know, it's 12 inches on the flamer, which is pretty decent anyway. But then for a CP, you can get an extra 6 inches on that, so we can start flaming away pretty soon. Start watering Nurgle's garden as soon as he likes. So you can be throwing that thing out at 18 inches. Yeah, awesome unit. You'll be hanging around with the Terminators, shutting down the enemy's tricks, being a beast with his sprayer, and being an all-round nuisance. So my Asman Ooze comes to a total of Elite's Choice is Foul Blightspawn with the Viscous Death, 85 points, a bargain again. Well, I'm not sure if I covered the Sergiot's points. The Plague Surgeon with Virulent Fever, 95 points again, but for the amount of resilience that he provides, again, I think these characters, they're worth every single point that you put on them. But you don't want to have too many of them. You know, there comes a point where you start over investing in buffs, but I think these three, they're not that expensive, and I think they all have a very, very awesome role in the army. They all do they all do very different things, and they all do it very, very well. So there we go, 3 voted Virion units and a load of command points spent to buff them up and make them the real heart of the army, you know, real sort of backbone of buffs and auras, and yeah, absolutely brilliant. So we'll have a look at some other units now. So the army's looking really good so far. We've got this awesome sort of tidal wall with the Terminators here. We've got this sort of the flooding horde aspect here with the Pox Walkers. These awesome buffing characters to all offer things in their own different ways, and some mighty HQ choices. But now we need a little bit of support here. Maybe just sort of direct a bit of attention away from here, a bit more of a bit of tactical flexibility, and also a bit of heavy firepower as well. So we're going to take a step over into the fast attack department now, and we're going to bring out 2 floated bloat drones. There they are. 2 of those, both with plague spitters, and these things are absolutely brilliant. You know, movement 10, really nice and fast. You know, toughness 7, so really tough enough. You know, with 9 wounds, so they're not degrading as the wounds go down, which is really, really good. And they've both got a plague probe. Just a little bit of combat pinch, but the real reason we're taking these is I've kitted them both out, both exactly the same, both with plague spitters. So I absolutely love this weapon. It's one of my favourite weapons, honestly is. So 12-inch range, it's a flamer, you know, assault d6, strength 6, AP -1, 1 damage, and it's a plague weapon, you know, automatically hits, of course. So really, really awesome. These guys are just they're just brilliant. 5-up invuln save. They blow up as well on a 4-up, but it doesn't even hurt Nurgle units. You know, putrid explosion. So that's a nice little bonus there as well. And yeah, so flamers, assault weapon. They can fire. They can, you know, advance and still fire comfortably. So you roll something decent for your advance roll. You know, you could be moving 14 inches, 15, 16 even, 16 inches, and then you still got a 12-inch range on the flamers. So they're an awesome harassing unit. They don't even need to get stuck in. They can sort of be flankers. You know, you could use them really tactically. What I actually quite like to do with them, I like to throw them into the enemy's face. And remember we talked about that psychic power that Gargorok could take. Gift of Plagues. So we can suddenly bosh an extra 6 inches on a contagion range ability. You know, there's a great stratagem called Flash Outbreak, and it does cost 2 CP, but when you play this, you can get every unit in your army considered to be 1 battle round higher for the use of their contagion ranges. So what that means is, turn 1, if you play that, you could get these suddenly up to contagion range 4 inches, 3 inches, and then you pop the psychic spell on them, get an extra 6 inches on that, and you suddenly got, turn 1, you've got a 9-inch bubble with one of these things. And if you advance them far into the enemy's face, you could, with that 9-inch bubble, you could probably be tapping something with that -1 to toughness early. They've got like a big vehicle or a knight or something. You could throw these at it, tap it down, drop the knight's toughness down turn 1 and start offloading firepower into it. So really, really handy, really, really useful. So I like playing them quite aggressively. I like throwing them at the enemy, you know. You can make them blow up as well with putrid detonation, cause them to blow up, so chuck them at characters and things and just make them blow up. They can heroically intervene as well. Dark Cravings, 1 CP to make them heroically intervene. Quite tactical, quite useful. You know, they often say that it's movement that wins games of 40k, and so these guys are fast. They can heroically intervene with the strat, and yeah, it's really, really awesome. Love them. So we've now got this nice sort of fast element of the army. We can be tactical, we can hold them back, we can screen against deep strikers and things like that, or we can zip up the board on the flanks and do little outflank skirmishes, pick on hordes and things with the flamers, stuff like that. Oh, overwhelming generosity as well. You know, if you really need to get some extra range on them flamers, get that up to 18 inches. It's a good one. And yeah, really, really cool. So plenty of uses for them, plenty of tactics, really, really tough. And they are, photo bloke drones are 130 points. 130 points. There we go. 2 of those and 2 fast attack slots filled. And that's going to bring us to the final 2 units of the army. One thing you might notice about when I make an army and stuff, I do quite like symmetry. I don't usually often have just one of something, you know, not things that aren't characters or stuff like that anyway. And so we've gone for 2, and it's heavy firepower. We need, which is the one thing we're sort of lacking at the moment, is heavy firepower. We've got a lot of combat punch here, some big stuff, you know, from the Terminators there, Gargoyle and Titus, but we need a bit of range firepower. So it's 2 Plague Burst Crawlers. Here they are. Like I said, we'll zoom out at the end and I'll show you the whole army. But there they go. 2 Plague Burst Crawlers there. These things are wonderful. You know, toughness 8. That's the real reason. That's one of the real reasons why you want these guys. Toughness 8 Death Guard. You know, 3 up save, 5 up demon save, -1 to all damage for disgustingly resilient. They're brilliant. 12 wounds. They're one of the just absolute toughest vehicles in the game. And I give them the entropy cannons. These things are amazing. They never used to be any good. I used to have flamers on these, but they changed it, put the entropy cannons now loads better. And I really like the Blight haulers as well, you know. I was running them for a long time as opposed to drones. I did like having all 3 of these units in the army, but just for the way points are now, I couldn't quite fit all 3 in. So sort of had to make a bit of a tough decision. Ended up going for the flamers and the fast attack support, you know, with the drones, and then sort of the big chunky firepower on the crawlers, on the toughness 8 chassis. You know, it's going to be hard to shift. But the entropy cannon, range 36, heavy 1, strength 8, AP -4, and damage is D3 +3, and it's a plague weapon. Horrible, utterly revolting. And yeah, and you know, their ballistic skill is now 3+ as well for all these engines. So yeah, 4 of those shots every turn, pretty nice. You know, you have those chipping away turn after turn. It's going to do well. You got Plague Burst Mortar as well, which is awesome. D6 shots can be a bit swingy. It's another sort of reason why I like to have 2, you know, to counteract any sort of swinginess with D6 weaponry. But again, the mortar, strength 8, AP -2, 2 damage. It's a blast as well, and it can target things that it can't see, which is awesome. So you know, somebody's got like a little squad of something, say a little squad of scarabs or Fenrisian wolves hiding out on an objective, trying to stay out of sight. You can flush them out with the mortars and stuff. It's awesome. You know, you can't hide from them. It's really, really useful. They're great against marines and things like that as well. You know, the strength 8, 2 damage. It's awesome. And I do give them the Rot Hail volley gun for the rapid fire 3. Just a nice little bit of extra DACA there. Strength 6, AP -1, quite nice. But yeah, so you can kit these out with a very nice stratagem. 1 CP, disgusting force. It's utterly revolting. You suddenly then Plague Burst mortars. They get damage 3. So, you know, you want to fire against things like Gravis armor and stuff, especially if you can knock that toughness down. So you got Gravis armor, you know, toughness 5. Try and get it within range of one of these drones. Knock that down to toughness 3, and to toughness 4. And suddenly your mortars are now wounding them off on 2s, and it's 3 damage. After the model is shot, select an enemy unit that was hit by 1 or more attacks by the mortar, and for every unit within 3 inches of that model. On a 4-up, it suffers a mortal wound. So the enemy's packing really close together, really tight, trying to form a bit of a castle or a defensive defensive body there. You can really start tearing that open as well, start breaking that apart with these mortars. Awesome stuff, you know. Overwhelming generosity as well. Again, if you really do need that extra range, but again, I don't really end up playing many stratagems on them except Disgusting Force. Yeah, awesome. Just really great. And that's kind of their role. They can hang out at the back, be sort of guard against deep strikers, you know, out screen them out and things like that, offloading their shots. Or you can play them aggressively as well, you know, throw them at the enemy. Why not? The entropy cannons here, heavy weapons, Death Guard, they don't get the -1 for firing into combat with heavy weapons. So it doesn't matter. It's not crazy bad if they get stuck into combat with a couple of things. Not that they'll do anything, but they're harder to tie up because they can fire quite happily. Yeah, and that's their function really. Heavy firepower support, toughness 8. You know, some real meat in the army now. And mortars for flushing out units and making sure things can't hide. And yeah, love them, absolutely love them. Beautiful models as well. That's something I haven't really mentioned actually, is that all these models I think are just absolutely amazing. All the unique Demon Engine units are so cool. The drones are so cool. All the Terminators, absolutely love those. Pox Walkers, even in themselves, beautiful little things. All the unique characters. Yeah, and I mentioned that the Great Unclean one is my favourite sculpt. The Rottigers one anyway. Well, anyway, so the Plague Burst Crawlers, they clock in with the 2 entropy cannons 175 points each. So again, just like really not that expensive, points well spent, worth every penny, you know, worth every point rather. You know, toughness 8, 12 wounds with that kind of damage output and disgusting resilience, just awesome stuff. But there we go. So that's the army. And what I'll do now is I'll have a nice little zoom out and set it all up and show you what it all looks like on the tabletop together, all set up, and talk a little bit more about just a final few thoughts on sort of overall tactics, overall synergy, and we'll wrap it up from there. And there we have it then. So this is the Drowned Plague, the rotten tide coming forward to drown all in its path. And it's formed into a battalion, so we've got 8 command points left to play with, so loads of command points, even though we spent quite a lot already. And the Blade Company itself is the Harbingers to buff the Pox Walkers. So we've got the mighty HQ choices first. Gargarot Deep, the man himself, just designed to be a sort of a solo ball of destruction, the epitome of disgusting and resilience, all in a beautiful package there. So with a warlord trait, revoltingly resilient, and the relic, the separating plate, like so. And then Titus here as well to buff the Pox Walkers, to be a combat beast as well, and to be a psychic machine also. So awesome unit there to have. 2 really strong, awesome, mighty HQ choices there that can, you know, designed to buff and look after themselves as well. And then you've got the lovely horde element here, the Pox Walkers. This really is the rotten tide right there. So many tricks that you can do with these, you know, the amount of mortal wounds that you can get out from them, the amount of resilience that they have, the amount of bodies that you can put back on the board, the amount of tricks. So how many times I've had like units of these down to just like 1 or 2 left, and I've managed through trickery and cunning to get the whole squad back together. It's they're so much fun. They're awesome. So this wonderful tidal horde element here, 52 Pox Walkers, backed up by this tidal meat shield wall of Terminators here, which is just utter filth. 2-up saves, 4-up invuns, you know, and they've got the good doctor here to give them 6-up feel no pains. These things, they're good at shooting, they're good at combat, they're just absolutely good at everything. And the Death Shroud Terminators here as well to be that utter combat machine, you know, these things they can chop through absolutely anything. And they'll go up against your mightiest opponents as well, like Blade Guard veterans, they'll happily get stuck into there. So they're absolutely awesome. And yeah, like we said, we've got the surgeon, the doctor here to provide 6-up feel no pains, to put wounds back on things, and to make him as reliable as possible. We've given him the relic, the Fugaris helm, to get an extra 3 inches on that feel no pain aura. Giving him the deadly pathogen to make his sword a little nastier. You know, just wanted him to be something a little bit more special. And we've also given him the Warlord trait, hulking physique to give him an extra wound, and permanent transhuman physiology. So we want to keep the guy alive who's keeping everybody else alive, you see. So that's Sergiot there. Scribus the Tallyman, you know, he's just an awesome unit, buffing the Terminators, getting extra hits with his relic there, the Toll Keeper, and he can tally a unit to get +1 to their hit rolls, and farming us some nice command points back as well. And then Miasman Ooze, the Foul Blight spawn there, to provide some wonderful gardening death with his watery hose, and to shut down auras, and to be a Judiciar as well. So his Warlord trait, Living Plague, and he's got the Viscous Death, Deadly Pathogen, to make that hose just a little bit more reliable with the D6 swinginess. So yeah, awesome asset, awesome annoyance, just a real pain in the ceramite for the enemy. Awesome guy to have. And then we've got all this wonderful core here, the nice Horde, the Unstoppable Tide, backed up by some tactical units here, the bloat drones who can be real harassments, you know, and they can shower the enemy in more liquid death. And then we've also got the big mighty toughness 8 tanks at the back there with the awesome heavy firepower that they can provide. And the machines and themselves, they provide a bit of a conundrum, because the drones can be such a nuisance that the enemy feels like they want to get rid of them. But then any firepower directed at them is not at the tanks. But then if you fire it at the tanks, you've got these to deal with later, and they're harassing your lines and stuff. And then the enemy might even think about putting heavy firepower into the Terminators, because it's possibly one of the only things to bring them down. But then that's not going into the tanks itself. And speaking of the Terminators, if you're not getting rid of them early on in the game, then they will last for the whole game. So if you start targeting them, then you're not focusing on the Pox Walkers, and these guys, if they're there at the end of the game, they'll just absolutely overwhelm you. So I think it's a really awesome, I really love this force. It makes me really excited, really pleased with it. I think it's full of conundrums, full of tricks, just full of pure, utter, beautiful, disgustingly resilience, and I love it. So this is the Drowned Plague, and this is how they wage war. And there we have it then. So that's the complete army list and Tactica video for the Drowned Plague, and that was the army. Would love to hear what you know about it in the comments down below. Do you think it's a strong force? Do you think it will do well? Do you like the idea? Do you think it's a good representation of how you imagine the Drowned Plague to play? If you are a tournament player, how do you reckon it'd get on against the meta? That's not what I'm trying to compete against, but how do you reckon it would do? Do you reckon it's a strong force, or do you reckon there's some changes? Would you like to see something brought in, something taken out? Let me know all your thoughts and feelings down below. And another thing, if you're interested, down in the description of the video below there, you'll see a little link to a Google Drive document, and I've written the whole list out and I've uploaded it onto Google Drive for you to take a look at if you want to read through all the details of the list and see all the structure and all the weapon choices and points values there. So there's a little resource there for you if you're interested. But that's all from Dimmu and I today. If you have enjoyed the video, then a like and a comment would be very, very much appreciated. And if you'd like to see more of what goes on here inside the Frozen Fortress, then perhaps you'll also consider becoming a subscriber. Keep a lookout for some more complete army list and Tactica videos, and some list proposal videos as well in the future. And whoever you are, once again, thank you very, very much for joining me today. I'm Winter Wizard, that's Dimmu, and for now, keep it frosty.